right, everyone. We're back with the intrepid Eris Nyx. Eris is a activist, queer, multidisciplinary artist, community organizer living on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Stolo First Nations. Eris currently is working on about 1,000 projects, but officially with the Downtown Eastside SRO Collaborative and volunteers with the Drug Users Liberation Front, which is why we are all here and so excited to see you because we want to know all about that work. And of course, the Black Lab Arts Society, which I have had the pleasure of having some interactions with some of the art projects that we have done. I will let Eris talk for themselves because nobody can talk for Eris, but I am so excited to have you all here and have an opportunity for Eris to show the amazing things that they are doing in the world. Welcome, Eris. I'm going to leave and leave you to it.
Leave me to my own devices. I imagine everyone can hear me. You can hear me? Yeah, we're good?
We're good, yeah.
Cool. So for anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Eris Nyx. I'm calling in from the unceded territories of the Squamish, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Musqueam nations in the downtown east side of what's called Vancouver, BC. And I'm here to talk to you about Dolph's Compassion Club models. Both the SUOP and the Section 56 exemption that we submitted to the federal government. So basically, I'm going to try and fire up this here presentation, and we'll get going. So a bit about me. I'm one of the co-founders of Dolph. I also work with the Downtown Eastside SRO Collaborative. I'm the director of their Toro program, which is an overdose outreach and education program, that does outreach into private SROs in the Downtown Eastside, housing of last resort. And we do naloxone education, overdose prevention work, blah, 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 blah. So who's Dolph? Dolph is, well, now we're incorporated. We had to incorporate ourselves. So Dolph is an incorporated institution that's totally volunteer run. It's me personally, I've been using drugs since I was like 12 or 13 years old. And I haven't stopped, and I'm not going to stop. And I like doing drugs. I think there's a lot of ridiculous narrative around, drug use. Regardless, Dolph is, myself, Jeremy Calicum, who is the other co-founder, and then a bunch of academics. We have an Indigenous advisory board. We have lawyers, doctors, people who work for Fair Price Pharma, blah, 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 blah. So the list goes on and on and on. Why are we doing what we're doing? I'm going to show you the graph everyone loves to see. Everyone loves to talk about graphs. Everyone loves to talk, but no one loves to do anything. So the numbers are not good. 2021, and this is just till October 31st. The government still has data after this embargo, but 2021 from January 1st to October 31st was the worst year on record for death. And a quarter of the people I work with are dead in this year. A quarter of the people I work with died, and two close friends of mine died. And being a trans person, the Downtown East Side is really my community. So everyone's dead. I don't have a happy story to tell you. Here's how this story is going to run. Everyone that does drugs will die, and there's no real tangible solution or forward motion on the table that's going to prevent that from happening. So I hope you're ready for a whole lot of death. Why is that happening? Well, there's three things. First of all, there's the reaching policy of prohibition, and prohibition is like an ancient regime that finds its origins in colonization and racism against, indigenous folks initially because they were prohibited from having access to alcohol, followed by opium prohibitions against, folks from Asia, and then prohibitions against cocaine and marijuana targeting, Black and brown folks, etc. So these ancient regimes have, created these massive issues where now the logic of the market is to trend towards more and more dangerous substances. Organized criminal gangs are going to dominate the market, and that trend towards more dangerous substances, it's easier to smuggle something that's less potent than more. It's easier to smuggle something more potent than less potent. For instance, it's easier to smuggle liquor than it is 800 bottles of beer. So the market is going to drive towards substances that are stronger, you can take a smaller amount of it with you. And also because the market's illicit, there's no regulation, so people don't know what they're taking. So the drugs are not only increasing in strength, but people have no idea. You go down to the corner and you buy a flap of down. You have no idea what's in that. It could be benzodiazepines and fentanyl. It could be, drywall dust and, some other nightmare concoction, PCP. We got rid of that slide. So there is no next slide with that talks about fentanyl variants. But basically, I'm like, the more unpredictable the drug supply is, the greater the likelihood people are going to die because they don't know what they're taking. And the problem is us. No, the problem is prohibition doesn't work. So it causes a threefold increase, in the potency of drugs, because as I was saying, more potent drugs, easier to smuggle. Toxicity of drugs, because deregulation of the market causes the supply chain to be unpredictable. You never know what you're going to get. And 3, organized crime. So what do? We have to dismantle the regime of prohibition. And I'm like, we did it with alcohol. Alcohol is literally the most dangerous drug, both socially and to an individual. Yet it's legal to protect consumers, blah, blah, blah. We're the Consumer Protection Initiative that is trying to protect drug users like me. I have a very personal connect. I use drugs. I don't want to die. People should know what they're doing. Drugs are not a crazy thing. You can smoke a dragon of heroin and not lose your mind. There's a difference between chaotic drug use and, just using drugs. So what is our position on safe supply? There's a lot of, ridiculous rhetoric, blah, 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 whatever about this. What we're saying is safe supply is substances where the potency and content and it's provided to people who use drugs in a way that's accessible and accurately conveys what they're taking. And we are kind of objecting to the medical version of safe supply, which says you have to access, safe drugs through your doctor. I'm like, your doctor's discipline, and I'm like, medical science, in my opinion, isn't really science per se. But your doctor's discipline is not to allow you to harm your body. Your doctor is not, except in very specific cases of alcohol use disorder, your doctor is not going to prescribe you alcohol. They're going to be like, that's going to kill you. Stop drinking. So why do people have to access narcotics through their doctor? It doesn't make any sense. You can go to a liquor store, buy as much liquor as you want, walk out of there, and it's fine. But you can't go buy heroin. You got to go to your doctor. It's ridiculous. So our model's panopticonically surveillance related. It's non-carceral. It's non-medical. Fuck the cops. Fuck the doctors. Fuck the College of Physicians. Fuck the College of Nurses. Fuck all these people who are in the way of letting this happen. Because as I was saying before, the graph goes up. So here's where Dolph comes in. So we know how to integrate ourselves into existing supply lines and test the drugs and then give those drugs out to people so they know exactly what they're taking. There, you know, we can ask questions about scalability, and this is where we'll get into, you know, us trying to make what we're doing legal, because literally all we are trying to do is protect consumers. We are not making any money. We take the drugs out of the market, we test them vigorously and rigorously, and then we reintroduce them back into the freaking market. And you know, as a trans person, I'm like, I could go to prison for 10 years for doing that. But you know, the graph goes up, and we can have all the meetings we want, but without anyone testing the drugs, you know, the graph's going to go up. And the interesting thing about DOLF is it incentivizes consumers to come to us as opposed to the illicit market, because they know the drugs they will get will not kill them. DOLF has given away over 150 grams of drugs for free to drug user groups in the downtown east side, which we'll get into. And there have been zero overdoses. So basically, we're watching everyone die. You know, everyone I know is dead. I'll die. Cool. And this is kind of the answer. We're getting effed up the A on it. You know, I'm a Vandu member. I'm a member of Coalition of Peers. I'm a member of the BC Yukon Association of Drug War Survivors, blah, 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 blah. We have connections to all these drug user groups provincially. And the idea is basically DOLF acts as a nexus that tests labels of drugs and then sends them to the drug user groups, and they disseminate the drugs to their membership, and then no one dies. And we're willing to work with anyone. We're willing to work with the federal government. We're willing to work with enforcement. We're willing to work with, you know, all these bing bongs. And, you know, they don't like us too much, probably for multiple reasons, I'd imagine. But woo, rage. Anyway, so burn down some buildings. That's what I'm encouraging you to do. We blah, 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 whatever. So here's what we do. We're a quality control checkpoint. We have clear and accurate label. You know, when people go to a drug user group to get these drugs, there's community there. And Audrey was talking about this. I mean, like, the thing that pushes people into chaotic patterns of substance use is a lack of community. So these DOLF compassion clubs, you have a fulfillment center, which is the thing that tests and labels the drugs, and you have the compassion clubs, which are run out of the drug user groups provincially. That's where we facilitate community, and that's where you connect people to recovery. We're not anti-recovery. If someone wants to go into recovery or whatever, that's fine with me, but I'm like, you cannot recover someone who's dead, and everyone knows that. And you know, we centralize purchases to decrease the cost of the drugs. And, you know, ultimately, we would like to work with illicit providers, you know, Fair Price Pharma, those kinds of people who can get us, you know, licit diacetylmorphine. And that would divert funds from the black market. But right now, we can't do that. So we'll get into it, how it works. Okay, so first of all, market navigation. So as I was saying, this is why I wanted to fast forward a bit. We don't want to be breaking the fucking law. You know, and I cannot stress this enough. I don't like breaking the law. I mean, anyway, but I think what I'm getting at here is if we had legal access to diacetylmorphine or heroin, you know, or, you know, pharmaceutical grade cocaine or pharmaceutical grade crystal methamphetamine, we would just go that route. The problem is getting access to those drugs requires a Section 56 exemption. And the Section 56 exemption is a clause in the Canadian Controlled Drugs and Substances Act that permits you to possess, traffic, sell, whatever, you know, do whatever you want with illegal narcotics with a ministerial or government permission, right? So we can't access these licit drugs because they refuse to give us this Section 56 exemption, or haven't yet, and we've requested one. We'll get into that at the end. Point of the story is they painted us into a frickin' corner here, folks. So what we have to do is figure out a way to get the drugs. And right now, the safest thing for us is using the dark net for multiple reasons. First of all, there's no in-person transactions, period. Meaning your money goes into escrow. So you log on to this market through a very complicated, hacker-esque use of Linux, and you buy cryptocurrency, specifically Monero, because you can't trace where the cryptocurrency is being moved around. And then you go on these markets, you put your money into escrow, and then you order these drugs. The drugs get shipped to you, and then you test the drugs while your money's in escrow. And if you get what you wanted, you release your money. If you don't, you can open a dispute and get your money back if you can prove you didn't get what you paid for. And that is a very good feature for us, because if you try and do that in real life, I'm just some little gay kid. I get my legs sawed off and, thrown in a river. So the dark net is really a useful consumer protection tool, one. And two, it's totally anonymous. So we don't know all these allegations. You're supporting child porn and crime and terrorism, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, could be your grandma selling us all this heroin. We don't know. So I'm like, we don't know where the drugs are coming from. They could be coming from the freaking cops, So we get the drugs. What do? We store the drugs. And here's the classic, put them in the, evidence locker heroin cage. But we get the drugs. So this is really important to understand what we're actually asking for. We are asking for one institution to get and store and test and label the drugs, and then provincial drug user groups in this kind of like archipelago to distribute the drugs. So they go through a central point, and then they go out to the drug user groups. And quite frankly, I do not think that we need to be involved. Like, I'm tired. I've been writing all this policy for free. Nobody pays us. It's all volunteer work, like 900 pages of policy for free. I don't want to do this. So if Fair Price Pharma wants to step in and be the fulfillment center, bang, bang, boom, that's great. You never have to listen to me talk again. But basically, you need an institution to get the drugs, and you need an institution to get the drugs to the people, right? So we store the substances, test them at a fulfillment center. Right now, the way Dolph is working is with amino acid dipsticks, FTIR, and mass spec. We also have access to nuclear magnetic resonancy testing. Because we're so thorough in the way we test the drugs and do multiple tests and test across many different testing technologies, we have a more accurate understanding of what's in the drugs we're getting right now than I would say the vast majority of people who are getting their drugs tested. And that's because user error with FTIR testing, or light, it uses a beam of light to cross compare a reflection of what's in, this is my layman explanation of this, to cross compare what's in your drug. It reflects this beam of light off the substances, and then it compares them to a library, and you have to choose. I'm hearing things. I'm, jib checking out. You have to choose, as the person running the machine, which substances are in the substance. There's no AI machine learning that's like telling you this. It's like mixing sound. It's a high margin of error. And one thing I've noticed very recently is it's impossible for a lot of technicians to tell the difference between 6-monoacetylmorphine and diacetylmorphine. And monoacetylmorphine, of course, the morphine molecule gives you pins and needles if you shoot it. Diacetylmorphine does not do that so much. So if you go do a thing and you test your drugs and it's heroin, and you're like, okay, cool, and you shoot it and it gives you pins and needles, well, you're not going to like that so much. So we get the drugs, we do all this testing, we put them in these packages. And I tried to, you'll see my design inspirations, I did all the labels, but we're not trying to sell, we're not Joe the Camel cigarettes. We tried to keep things as simple as possible and put the same warning labels you would see on nicotine products, which quite frankly are way more extreme than what you would see on alcohol, So we put all these warning labels, don't feed your kids or your dog the heroin or cocaine or whatever. these, those are designed for smaller packages, these are designed for larger, 3.5 grams. This is like a point, could come in a box, right? And then here's where we take design inspiration from. So Off-White, Jewel, Public Image Limited, Album, and No Name Brand. So you can see, like, just look at the freaking Jewel box. It's, anyway. And so to prevent people, kids and crap from getting the drugs, the next thing, so this institution, whoever it is, right now it's us, gets the drugs, tests them, labels them, packages them, what's in the box is what it says on the outside of the box. Uh-oh. Unstable connection. Hey, are we back? Hopefully. Can someone in the chat tell me if they can hear me? I'm having like a psychotic episode, I feel like. I froze. Hey, okay. Cool. So anyway, we got the drugs, we test them, we label them, we put them in a box. Then we send the boxes out to the drug user groups. And the drug user groups are the institutions that screen for the membership, as well as bridge people into other services and connection and community, I think the membership assessment for this can be very straightforward. What's your handle? Do you use drugs? Are you over 18? We're not trying to give drugs to kids, but admittedly, kids do drugs, and myself being a great example. So that's a question for a different presentation. Oh, I gotta click over here. Does it work? There we go. And then now it comes down to the money question. So I crunched this. I'm like, look, I'm willing, if I got to stop everyone from dying, I'm willing to traffic the $4 million of heroin you would have to, and that's just to keep 500 people alive, and whatever. I'm willing to do that, but I'm like, where is stupid asshole me gonna get $4 million? So the Compassion Club model needs some way of recruit. You can't just give away drugs for free unless you're getting them illicitly. Like, it will not break even. So you have to, if you scale the model up, you have to start charging people cost for the drugs to keep the program running. As I was saying before, if you buy more, price drops. And I was talking about this too. So we want to prove we're right. If we're wrong, if everyone died, if everyone took our drugs and died, I would feel awful. So I'm like, we don't want to, skimp on the evaluation. So, people like Dr. Thomas Kerr from UBC School of Population and Public Health, blah, blah, blah. All these researchers want to help us evaluate what we're doing. Here's like a draft logic map. It's actually pretty outdated, so I'm not going to run through it. But the point is, this would be like a simple evaluation. We're not idiots. Yeah, membership fees I see in the chat. Membership fees could also work. There's a bunch of ways to do the models. I like creative thinking. I just want to do what works and save people's lives. So, and then why are we always in the news? Because I think, the spectacle of death deserves the spectacle of life. So Dolph has a very performative element. And to get these idiots that are killing everyone I know to listen, you have to do crazy stuff. And I use the term crazy loosely. You have to get yourself in the news to push the agenda of these issues forward. You can't be afraid of getting in trouble or going to prison. And I think having looping conferences is probably the worst thing drug users could be doing. Get on the streets. And I'm like, look, man, we're giving away free drugs with the city councilor in front of the police station. I'm like, go do something and stop talking about stuff. God damn it, is everyone talking about? So right now, and here's where we're at with it. I'm like, we keep doing the thing. We keep giving out free clean drugs and no one's died, and we keep collecting data, and we'll keep doing that as long as we have to. But we don't have enough funding, or you know, it's just two of us, so we need a lot of money. Like I said, we need $4 million, and we need to find $4 million a year of clean heroin. So if you're one of the people that can find me that, be in touch, because Jesus Christ, I can barely find an ounce of heroin at once. And then yeah, we have all these people in support. What's the next slide? I don't even know on my own slide deck. Blah blah blah. Okay. So basically, I'm like, we submitted 2 documents to the government of Canada. One is what's called a Section 56 exemption, and the Section 56 exemption is a request to allow us to do the model I just described. And you can find this, it's in our weird little expo booth on here, and it's on our website, www.dolph.ca. That exemption request asks for us to be able to procure, store, test, label, distribute drugs while not making any profit. So there's that. And then we have a SUOP grant application, a request for proposal or something. I don't know anything anymore. But point of the story is that the SUOP grant asks for funding for evaluation. So you have the request to exempt us from the drug laws, and then you have the request for funding for evaluation. And right now the government's just ignoring us. And everyone's gonna die. So that's good. How have we funded it? We crowdsource all our money. You can donate to us. It's all donated money. I have no money. Look at me. Do I look like someone who would have money? No, but middle class, normal people like the, you know, general you, they give us the money to do it. Basically, I think at the end of the day, you know, civil disobedience is what's going to change things. And I mean real civil disobedience. I don't mean just like talking. And, you know, overdose prevention sites, needle exchanges, needle distribution, all that stuff came from people breaking the law. So that's why this, you know, slide deck is called the next logical step in harm reduction. And if you want to help, and here's the donation link, so you can give us money at our Sustainer Donor campaign, which is ongoing monthly donations. You can send us a letter of support from your organization that we can send to the government. We have a petition, not that I think petitions do anything, but if you want to make yourself feel good, which I'm sure some of you do, please go sign that and you know, write to the government, not that that does anything either, or come volunteer, you know, one of our actions. That's the end of the slide deck, so I'm going to stop. Okay. I don't know if anyone has any questions or if we want to move on to the next presenter. I feel like I fielded most stuff in the.
Great, I can field some questions. Jeff is asking, do some Canadian provinces provide opioid agonists for free at some supervised consumption sites?
Yes, they do. And an example, I mean, it depends where you are in the country, right? Harm reduction, there's a very huge dispersion and deviation of services. Some cities won't even give you, you know, Menadol, you know, or Dilaudid. They won't even prescribe it. You know, some cities like Vancouver, we have a vending machine that scans your hand and dispenses prescribed Dilaudid. But the real issue, I think, is your physician doesn't want to prescribe you narcotics. That's what it boils down to. And I'm like, they shouldn't, and it doesn't make any sense for them to. You should just be able to buy them.
I mean, would it make sense to go to a bar and need a prescription for your drink when you go there in order to do so? And then what kind of assessment would the doctor need to do in order to do the medical model of safe supply?
It's incredibly
another
stupid.
bottle. Yeah.
Why shouldn't we make money? That's the next question. Why shouldn't we make money? Because people would hate us. Are you out of your mind? This model would never sell if we were, hi, we're the heroin pushers. There's like the Purdue Pharma kid, you know. Eventually, I'm like, for sure, everyone, you know, designer drug, you know, micro heroin brewery, I don't care. My thing is, I'm just like, I used to work frontline, you know, in a shelter. And from 2016 to like 2018, before I got into public policy, which I hate, I just watched everyone die like in front of me, like 10 overdoses a shift. You know, in 2014, 15, and 13, when I started doing that or whatever, it would not like that. You know, you maybe had one opiate overdose a year, and then it shot up to like 10 a day. So this kind of pushed me into doing what I'm doing. Are the DOLF membership groups across Canada? Really, we're very Vancouver centric. We've talked about doing federal actions, but people just get too scared. I'm like, nobody wants to be, I'm like, the sentence for being involved in this is like up to 10 years for criminal conspiracy, depending on what the government wants you to, you know, how much of an example they want to make you. And most of the actions we've tried to plan federally have fallen apart, even provincially, because of the RCMP. And, you know, Vancouver is really the mecca of harm reduction in a sense. But if you have the wherewithal to give out free drugs, we will send them to you in the mail. But you got to do it publicly. That's the thing. And we can teach you, if you want to do some clandestine operation, we can teach you how to do it. But you have to be incredibly technologically complicated, competent.
It's both. Sampath is asking, are there Section 56 equivalents in the US?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know how American drug laws work, honestly. I'm so focused on the Canadian context. I would look into it. I mean, any policy should have, you know, a sensible like relief valve where it's like, if this law is harming people, here's what you do to take pressure off society, right? That's what Section 56 is to the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act in Canada. I'm sure it's something you could easily figure out in the American context, though.
I'm sure there is a like comparable thing, because how is alcohol able to be sold? How are pharmaceuticals companies able to distribute controlled substances?
The thing about it's just a list they made up. They just took all the drugs and put them on a list, and alcohol's just not on there, you know. And it changes too. Like in the 50s, amphetamine salts were still legal, and now they're like a very controlled substance. What will you guys do if the darknets go down or fiat on-off ramps to Monero get banned? Well, we're mining Monero, one, so we're just getting Monero from mining it, haha. But also, we'll just use Bitcoin. I don't give a shit. I'll buy drugs off the street if I have to. It's just like way more dangerous, you know? I will get the drugs that are safe to give to the people I love so they don't die. I don't give a shit. But I'm like the dark heroin. It's so hard to find clean heroin. You do not understand that doesn't have any fentanyl contamination. Every batch I buy, like these are two different samples of fucking heroin in my drawer, and I'm like, they're both very, very like under 2%, like as close to the tick on the dipstick as you can get contaminated with fentanyl from 2 different ounces of heroin. But I got the $8,000 I would have been out back because of the dark net, you know. But if you know the plug, that's what I'm saying. I'm not concerned about breaking the law, or I wouldn't be doing this. I don't care where they come from. I care that I'm like, people will do drugs. Drugs are a commodity. There's no ethical commodity. There's no safe commodity. I don't know when people talk about drugs, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Because to me, as someone who's done drugs for so long, the narrative around it, the way people are like, oh, it's, you know, you're going to get addicted, the pusher, like, bleh. I'm like, that's not what drugs are like. And if you don't believe me, go do drugs.
I'm sorry.
That was a good line, yeah.
That's going to be your quote.
No, I'm serious though. I'm like, go smoke crack just once. Just try it. It's not a big deal. Smoking crack is not a big deal, and it shouldn't be. I'm like, why? Here's something. Why can you go to some rich asshole's house and they're like, here's my martini set, you know, and I'm gonna make you this fancy martini. But if you go to someone's house and they got like, you know, a fancy fucking the rigs and shit, you're like, oh, that's disgusting. I'm like, that's prejudice, pal.
When I go to fancy people's houses, occasionally they're always doing drugs. It's always the Scooby snacks and the, you know, they got the Molly or the whatever the thing is, right? Like they're, you know, they just
everybody does drugs.
Everybody loves
we need
drugs.
to just, like, totally rethink the way we think about this issue and stop acting like it's some bad fucked up thing, you know, that people have to stop doing. I'm just like, maybe we could just make it safe. And how do you make it safe? You regulate it, just like alcohol. It's right there, black and white. I'm like, we just sent you, you know, 90 pages of research. I'm not shitting you. You know, I might be not as well spoken as Jeremy until I get angry, but my point is, read those documents because they're very thorough, and you can steal all of it. All the work we do is open source. We're not like the BCCSU or some bullshit where we're hiding everything from everyone. I got nothing to hide. I'm an idiot. It's out in the open. I'm an idiot, Jerry, you know? Well, I'm just like, everyone I know is dead. Over the weekend, I got someone I know died. I'm just like, every time I do a presentation, someone different I know is dead. You know?
Yeah.
And the problem is all these cops and Epstein Island shit and all the, you know, horrible things in the world all hinge on the war on drugs right now. And the people that run the criminal institutions and the medical institutions and the psychiatric institutions and these literal sadists who have nothing better to do than torture people, like the Catholic Church, you know, they don't want to relinquish power. And that's, if you pull the war on drugs out of the game of Kerplunk, all the marbles fall down. And, you know, that's radical. And that's why I do what I do, because I cannot handle seeing people suffer and be tortured to death. So, you know, and you can do it too. The other major barrier, though, I will say this: testing is a fucking dick grinding nightmare. Like, to have access to testing that tells you 100% what you're giving people is very hard to get. And we might actually be one of the only organizations, especially nuclear magnetic resonancy. And Jeremy's a science, you know, chemist, organic chemist, but I'm like, do not trust the spectrometer and don't even trust these fucking dipsticks, because there have been off batches and problems. I'm like, do not trust anything they're trying to tell you to, you know, they're like, this is going to make you know your drugs are safe. I'm like, no, it won't. Anyway, and on that note, everyone dies.
On that note, we're still here, Eris. We're still here. There's some of us still here, but it fucking sucks when your names become stats. And yeah, it's fucking relentless every day. Thanks for joining us today and energizing our brains.
Everyone wake up.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, do I click leave? Listen to more rap music, everyone. Listen to West Side Gun. That's the last thing I'm going to say. Virgil Abloh.
Amazing.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Well, I did tell you intrepid. I was not wrong. It's always a pleasure and a thrill to hear Eris speak about anything you, for me, as someone who, you know, is tired of the people speaking out of both sides of their mouth, it's always refreshing to be in a room with Eris, who blows the smoke off of absolutely everything, can see clearly, can articulate, and you know exactly where they stand. And that is an amazing gift that Eris gives to the world. And I'm so happy that we were able to share some time with Eris today. I am gonna dip backstage. We're gonna take a quick 7-minute break, approximately 7 minutes. I need a breath. I need a breath. Yeah, so refill those coffees, get your beer, get your fancy rigs, whatever it is that's going on that you need, get your kitty cats, get your pajamas, put the flannel sheets on your bed. Take a moment, relax, shake it off, go put your feet on the ground if you're feeling a little bit adrenal, and we will be back shortly.